That is not what I was hoping for. Well. Welcome back to New York Sports WickerMedia. I'm WatsuK99. Thank you, as always, for taking the time to watch these videos. If you enjoy what you're watching, please hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. My goal is to get to 400 subscribers by the end of December. I appreciate all your support. I want to talk for a few minutes about this very disappointing 27-22 Jets loss to the Minnesota Vikings. This was a game I was feeling quite confident in going into it. I figured it would be a very close game. It absolutely was. And I'm going to say this. Watching the Jets as I have for about 35 years now, I and a lot of you have seen just about every time of loss there is to possibly see. There have been heartbreaking losses, embarrassing losses, frustrating losses. For me, this was an empty loss. This was a loss where at the end of it, I just felt I had no energy left to give. There was just nothing to say. I didn't want to talk to anybody. Just nothing. And this is not a situation where I can look at moral victories. You know what moral victories are for? When you're 2-11. Your team absolutely stinks, but you play a really good team and you give them a heck of a battle all the way to the final whistle. When you're in a hunt for the playoffs and maybe even your division title, moral victories are non-existent. So I don't want to hear about the Jets growing up, even though this was a step for them, playing a very good team. You know, I know they played this team tough, but you know what? This team has a heck of a lot of talent. There isn't any reason that they can't compete against anybody in the NFL right now. A lot of people are going to talk about three main people: Mike White, Braxtonberrios, Mike LaFleur. That's what's getting the vast majority of the attention. The way the Jets absolutely failed in the red zone, and they did. 1 touchdown out of 6 trips to the red zone is unacceptable. You could talk about the offensive coordinator, but you know what? When you have that many opportunities to score touchdowns and you're just not doing it, you know what? Eventually, to me, that comes down to a lack of execution. And when you have that many opportunities, it doesn't come down to one play. I can't put this on Braxton Berrios. I even saw people on social media saying that the Jets should leave Braxton Berrios in Minnesota. You know, some people who I actually consider to be reasonable, smart Jets fans just going off on Berrios. It was just ridiculous. So I guess my thing is right now with Mike White, I'm going to say this and then we'll talk about the 3 plays that affected the outcome of the game that might fly under the radar. Mike White, to me, played a very up-and-down, inconsistent game. Okay, the numbers look pretty good on the surface, I know. 31 completions out of 57 attempts, 369 yards. That's only 6.5 yards per pass, okay? No touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and a quarterback rating of 59.8. But a lot of his passes were just too far behind these receivers. There were just too many times when they were offline. Now, he completed some big passes. You know, the 4th down to Corey Davis on the next to last drive of the game definitely comes to mind. You know, he did do some things very well, but in my mind, there were just too many spots when he did not do what he had to do. The number 1 spot, and I'm not including this among the 3 plays because I feel like this play should not be forgotten about, was that long bomb to Garrett Wilson where he had several steps on the defender. And if White just puts a little less on the ball, Garrett Wilson's taking the ball to the house and the Jets have the lead, and then who knows what happens. That is a play that is going to haunt me. If the Jets do not go on to make the playoffs, when I think about what could have been, I'm going to think about that missed pass to Garrett Wilson. And you know what? I actually do want to spend a moment and thank the San Francisco 49ers and the Vegas Raiders for beating the Miami Dolphins and San Diego Chargers of Los Angeles, respectively. Much needed. It leaves the Jets still in the 7th seed for the AFC playoffs. So they still control their own destiny, as a matter of fact. But I got to tell you, if I'm being realistic here, in these last 5 games, the Jets have got to win 3. absolutely have to win 3, and I think 2 of them are going to have to be the AFC games. Again, at Buffalo next week, home against Jacksonville, at Miami. If the Jets do not win 2 of those games, they're not going to the playoffs. And you know what? Detroit is getting better, it seems, by the week. By the week, they put up 40 points on Jacksonville this week. We know what Seattle has been this year on offense. And, man, this is going to be a very, very difficult finish. And I'm going to compliment the Jets about one other thing, and that would be their resiliency. Because Michealclemons got taken out on a cart, came back into the game. Quinnenwilliams separated his shoulder. He ran into the medical tent, popped the shoulder back into place, and came back on the field for the final 3 and out of the game. That gave the Jets one last chance to win this game. But I'll tell you what, a shoulder dislocation is scary. It's serious. The defense, I would describe them as very good. They're not a top defense. This Sunday they only had 2 sacks against Kirk Cousins, and that's just not enough. They had 9 quarterback pressures, but only 2 sacks, and for the second straight week, they didn't turn the opponent over. That's what's frustrating to me. This is a defense that the best defenses in the league turn the other team over. And here's the other thing that really bothers me about this defense. 3rd downs. I feel like a broken record talking about this. Minnesota converted 9 out of 18 third downs. The Jets, by comparison, converted just 3 of 16 third downs. Major, major problem. And if Quinnen's not able to play for any amount of time, the Jets' playoff chances just took a major, major nosedive. Okay, so with that in mind, let's talk about the 3 key plays you might not recall that affected the outcome of this game. Now, all 3 of these plays are going to be when the Jets had the football. So the first play we're going to talk about is with 5 minutes and 49 seconds to go in the first quarter. The Jets have a 2nd and 15. This is after the Jets took a false start penalty, and Mike White threw an incompletion to Corey Davis. Mike White throws a long pass down the sideline towards Denzel Mims. And the pass is simply out of his reach. It's well defended. And instead of running the ball to try to get some yards back, Mike LaFleur felt it would be best to try a deep pass to Denzel Mims. It didn't work, and that led to a 3rd and 15. And when the Jets have 3rd and more than 10 to go, we all know what play they're dialing up. The 2 or 3 yard dump-off pass to Ty Johnson, which best case scenario will get 5 or 6 yards. Mike LaFleur, memo to you. Strike that play from the playbook because I don't need to see it anymore. It doesn't work. And then the Jets, of course, have to punt the ball, and that gave the ball back to Minnesota. 14 plays later, they're in the end zone. They take a 10-3 lead. So that takes us to play number 2. Now, this is going to fast forward us to the 2-minute warning. The Jets have the ball at their own 43-yard line, and they're trailing 17-3 at this point. So they're trailing by quite a bit at this point, but keep in mind, they still have all 3 timeouts. Yes, Minnesota's going to get the ball back, but if the Jets don't convert this first down, they basically put Minnesota practically in field goal range. So Mike White tries a pass to Ty Conklin, who's well covered. The ball's knocked loose. And by the way, I thought Ty Conklin had a very disappointing game. Maybe the most disappointing game he's had since September. But now you might be thinking, well, why is this a play we might not recall? I remember when they didn't convert the 4th down. There's one key. If you have a chance to watch this play again, look up on your screen. Elijah Moore is running wide open towards the sideline and has an absolute gimme for a first down. Nobody was near him, and as soon as the ball was thrown from Mike White's hands towards the direction of Tyler Conklin, you could read the frustration on Elijah Moore's face as he threw his arms out in complete disbelief that he was missed. And, of course, what does that do? That gives the ball right back to Minnesota. 20 yards later, they kick a field goal. They take a 20-3 lead into halftime. That's play number 2. Now let's talk about play number 3. We're going to fast forward to 2 minutes and 22 seconds to go in the third quarter. Now, Mike White has just converted a 3rd and 1 on the Minnesota 8-yard line. The Jets have 1st and goal at the Minnesota 6. They have been struggling to get the ball in the end zone all day long. And this is an amazing, amazing opportunity. So Mike White throws a short pass to Braxtonberrios, who turns around and gets 3 yards. So now it's going to be a 2nd and 3. 2nd and goal from the 3-yard line. Out comes the yellow flag, and George Fant, who had just been inserted back into the lineup, gets called for an illegal block above the waist on Patrick Peterson. Absolutely the right call. He shoved him down from behind, and that cost the Jets 10 yards. So now instead of a 2nd and goal from the Minnesota 3, it is 1st and 16 from the Minnesota 16-yard line. And then what do? 3 straight passes. 1 incomplete, 2 incomplete, and then a 4-yard gain to Elijah Moore, and the Jets settle for the field goal. I know there's going to be a whole lot of scrutiny about those last couple of drives, but you know what? For anybody who wants to blame Braxtonberrios for this loss, it never had to come down to that play. The Jets had opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to take the lead in this game and win it. And I'll give them credit again for coming back, but they didn't come back all the way. And you know what? If you're going to grow up, if you're going to make the playoffs and make a run in the playoffs, you have to learn to win these kinds of games. And we knew going into this season that there would be some of those games they would probably lose, and there would be some of them that they would probably win. This was a rough loss to take because the win felt like it was right there on the tips of their fingers. It was not to be, and now they have to go play in Orchard Park against an angry, talented, and well-rested Buffalo Bills team. If the Jets had won this game, they would be playing for first place potentially in the division. Instead, they're playing just to stay in the wild card picture. Very disappointing. We'll move on as we always do. We're Jets fans. What else can we do? You know, this didn't kill the season, but it just made their journey to the playoffs a whole lot harder. Well, I want to know your thoughts. Any particular plays that you remember from the game that stood out to you, let me know. And one more thing, Greg Zuerlein, fantastic job. I cannot do this video without crediting Greg Zuerlein for a job very, very well done. Contract extension would be well earned if he was to get one. All right, well, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you back here with more content from you know where. The Wicker Chair.